Back to Educator.com, and if you've made it this far, you're ready for one of the most challenging yet one of the most fruitful parts of learning to read a nonfiction book. We're going to go over propositions, reasons, and evaluations. And here is where you're going to be using critical thinking skills, not just as in exercises to get a grade, but in real life, something that actually, well, is outside of school and something that will help you in all of your life, not just from, high school through college. So, the overview is going to go like this. We got to know what a proposition is, and we have to learn how to find a proposition. And then we're going to figure out what the reasons and the arguments are. Then finally, I'm going to give you a little bit of hints on how to consider and how to criticize a book. Now, what is a proposition? A proposition is kind of a binary statement. Now, what do I mean by a binary statement? I mean a statement that can be true or it can be false. Maybe it could be sort of true and kind of false, but normally it's just right or wrong. And these propositions are claims and judgments from the author. Now, it doesn't even have to be something that the author's trying to persuade you. It might not be a persuasive book, it might not be a practical book, but it's just something that the author thinks is true. Maybe they're just describing which mountain is the highest in the world. And it might not necessarily be Everest, depending on how you think about it. And these propositions must be supported by reasons, they must be supported by arguments, and they must be supported by evidence. And a book will contain an overarching thesis, and usually an overarching argument and reasons, but they will contain many, many, many propositions, like more than you could probably count. But all these propositions work together to make the author's overall point and overall thesis in the book. A proposition will not always be stated in a full sentence, but it is seldom longer than a single sentence. I'll give you some examples right now. Brain on music. Although many people have said that music lessons didn't take, cognitive neuroscientists have found otherwise in their laboratories. I am going to highlight the proposition here, and I am going to underline it. Now notice he is kind of phrasing this in a negation, so maybe that might not be the best place, but we could also say our evidence here is this right here, and I'll just kind of try 1 point for the evidence. Even just a small amount of exposure creates, etc., etc. Then music lessons teach us to listen better, etc., etc. So in this case, I have one proposition here that's underlined. Notice it's not a full sentence, it's just part of a sentence. And I even found a couple reasons. Reason number 1 and reason number 2. You can go ahead and pause this and read this whole thing if you like. Here's another proposition that is stated in a clear sentence. This is from a book called What Would Google Do? Before getting into Google's laws, allow me to start with my own first law, one learned on the internet. Give people control and we will use it. Do not and you will lose us. Here is the proposition. He states the proposition in a positive way, and then he states it in a negative way. He kind of states the opposite just for emphasis. Most of the proposition is right here, and I think that if I had to get it to one sentence, that's the one I would choose. But because he's using a rhetorical technique of stating the opposite right after, the affirmation, I'll go ahead and count the whole thing. So, this is a proposition. It can be true or false. I got to read on in this book to find out whether or not it's true. Now, let's see if he's given us any reasons so far. This is an essential rule for the new age. Previously, powerful companies, institutions, governments believed that they were in control, and they were. Okay. I'm not really seeing so much of a reason, but he's kind of giving a nice description of what this law is. So he hasn't really given us reasons to believe this is true. But hopefully, as we continue to read in a book like this, we'll be able to find the right answer.